This is Remote Ruby.
Have you any remote idea to the meaning of the word?
What's up?
Welcome back.
No, it's been a minute.
And you will be gone for another minute.
Yeah, I think this is my last one for a little while. So at least we have today.
It's for good reason, though. It'll be back to very little sleep, though, right?
Yeah, so it'll be an adjustment. But we have the baby being delivered a week from Sunday. So by the time this one comes out, it'll be in, 2 days. So,
well, congratulations in the future.
She could come before that too. So Shannon was in the hospital last week and that's why I missed. But she actually started having contractions while she had pneumonia. And they were like, no, we got to stop that. So it could be any minute. Anyway, what's good?
What's new with you, Andrew?
I'm working in a weird area of the internet, and there's not too much to say about it because most people just probably can't relate to this at all. But I'm doing stuff with Adobe, and anytime you do stuff with Adobe, especially if you have to interact with their scripting interface, you're going to have a bad time.
When you say weird part of the internet, I start to think like 4chan and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't say the dark corners of the internet.
What's going on with these lights behind you? Are they changing colors?
I got a little fancy while you were gone.
Okay.
Is that your Nanoleaf stuff?
Yeah, I've got the lights. I've got the Siri. Started to build up some actions and stuff. I'm having a blast.
So if we said hey Siri, turn on seizure mode.
No.
Sorry, I can't do that.
Oh, yes, you did it. You did it to yourself.
Wait a second. How did she pick that up through headphones?
My phone heard me talk.
Oh, that was Andrew's. I was like, are they just for looks?
Me. I'm pretty sure mine is set to only adhere to my voice.
Oh.
But if I say, hey, assistant, then we've got who knows who's going to answer.
Well, that's cool. How's Arizona?
Arizona is pretty good. It's hot. Surprisingly, I had no idea it was going to be hot. I'm just kidding. I say that because the only thing anyone ever said to me whenever I was like, yeah, I'm moving to Arizona, they're like, oh, it's really hot. I'm like, yeah, I figured, but I enjoy it so far. I'm working through getting furniture and stuff still. But, other than that,
it's probably cooler than your last house when it was on fire.
Oh my God. Will there be 1 week without the pyro jokes?
I have so many questions, but now's not the time. We've never talked about it.
Yeah, that's definitely for another time.
Well, I'm glad you're adjusting. Chris, what's up with you?
Oh, well, we closed on our construction loan yesterday, so I'm officially broke, but excavation's pretty much done, I think. They're doing a little bit today, putting some rock in, start foundation on Monday. So yeah, we're making moves, finding out. I was at the lumberyard earlier today, as you do, just hang out there. Oh gosh, the shortages are in full effect with fiberglass windows, and they don't have joists in stock and can't really get them. And anything based on resin is short supply. So that's wonderful, but it is what it is. It makes up for it with the low interest rates and stuff. So that's at least not the worst time in the world, but it could always be worse. So yeah, I'm just excited to get moving on it. It's going to take a long time, probably a little bit longer than we had hoped because of the delays. But it's the same thing when you start a programming project and you're like, okay, what are we going to use for database and hosting and all these different things? We have all those same, what brand for your interior doors and what size baseboard trim do you want? And the list goes on forever. And you go and get these rough quotes. And then you're like, yeah, guess what? We never even once thought about what brand of shingles we're going to get. We know we want black or something, but it's never ending list. And then they give you a quote, we got a quote from our window supplier of 70 some windows. And it's just we have to go through every single one of these and confirm the size and does it open to the left or to the right? And it's a casement or fixed window or whatever. And it's a long process, but it got me thinking about with building, you have an architect and they write up a plan and it's 15 pages long with every single detail written in there. Can you imagine doing that with software where like you have a PDF, let's call it, and you just hand that to any developer? Okay, you're responsible for this piece. That would be so weird. It's so strange to imagine doing that in software instead of they make sense intuitively in building. That's just how it's done. But it seems weird to imagine building software that way.
It kind of sounds like you're describing the steps you have to go through to get like a SOC 2 compliance report and stuff. Because I've been listening to Founder Quest and they've been talking about that, or they have been in the past. And all the stuff you have to go through, and oh my God, it was incredible. So, and all the gathering of requirements and figuring out what your vendors are using and seeing if they have compliance reports and like, you know, spending all this money to get it certified. I think that's the closest equivalent I've got for you.
Yeah, it sounds right. Enterprisey grade software development ending up in that sort of like world or whatever. Yeah, I could see that. I'm going to have to listen to those episodes. It's weird not having a commute or anything anymore. I don't really listen to podcasts for the past year or so. I got a lot to catch up on.
You haven't written any fun Ruby scripts to do any of this for you? I read a blog post this week about someone who wrote a Ruby script to like book themselves a vaccine appointment. Like the vaccine appointments would open up. This wasn't in this country. They would open up for like a very short time, you know, and people would try to get in, almost like a Black Friday deal. And they wrote a Ruby script to get themselves a vaccine schedule appointment. So that was pretty cool. So you haven't written any fun scripts to figure out which way your door's open?
No, unfortunately. It reminded me of one of my friends there's certain podcasts that will like take down old episodes or like remove them from the feed. So he wrote his own podcast feed service to collect those and just cache all the episodes, because that way he can make sure that he always had every episode. I love little projects like that though. Like some of those it's probably because the scope of them is so small that you're like, you can build it and be done and it feels complete at a certain point. It's probably why it's so satisfying. But I haven't done anything like that in a little while. Everything seems to be going on forever and ever.
I've been writing some little scripts, nothing conversation worthy, but as I've been playing with Bridgetown, whenever I find like a new CMS that looks cool, I'll write like a little Ruby script to like pull down all the data into JSON to be used from my application. So I've been doing some of that, and that's been a lot of fun to kind of get back into like scripting and not just writing like these ridiculous Rails features or, you know, stuff like that. Getting back into Ruby, I would say as well. Just writing pure Ruby and remembering like the limitations and the things. And it's a lot of fun. I love Ruby.
I'm pretty like out of it. I don't have like a lot of cool things to talk about, but I have one thing I want to talk about, and you're going to think it's a joke, but it's not. I want to talk about Haml, and I want to talk about...
Yes, let's go.
I want to talk about how interested and excited I am to see they're working on it again. I'm
glad you brought this up. We forgot to talk about this last week.
Well, I'm really
Haml
glad.
Released their roadmap kind of for what they want to do, and they're trying to get some funds on Google sponsors, and they want to do a lot of work like rewriting kind of the internals and also changing some of the key commands around. Like I think like the % sign for a element they want to change, because at the time it was written so that it was like the farthest button away for you to press on purpose, so that you wouldn't be using like all these custom elements, which apparently used to be a thing. And now it's like a good thing again. I don't really know where. I think I missed out on part of that like evolution of the web.
So the thing that caught my eye, I didn't realize, like, this is when I actually got frustrated with Haml, was when I was doing a lot more stimulus, because like writing data attributes was not very it is intuitive. It was just pain in the ass. But then literally like bullet number 4 in this roadmap is specifically, we will make this language work well with stimulus.js style modern HTML focused workflows. And that really piqued my interest. And it was like, what do we know? We'll make sure it's backwards compatible. We'll focus on HTML and modern browser tech. This is the one. We will be more inspired by JavaScript syntax than CSS going forward. I'm interested to see that. So I threw my sponsorship that way, which
I did as well.
Seems counterintuitive, but here I am waiting for the next version of Haml. So,
hey,
Speaking of sponsors, LVH.me went down this week and I think broke way more development environments than the owner realized he would. I think he just didn't renew it or something and it went down, and then a bunch of people were tweeting about it, and that's been my go-to for as long as I can remember. It's just short and easy to remember, but you could definitely set up your own local domain, but it's nice to have somebody else just do it and maintain it for you.
Did he respond to your tweet about like helping out?
No, because as far as I know, it's just like a DNS record that points to 127001. And I was like, well, if it's just $30 a year or whatever a .me domain is, like, I'm happy to pay for it or whatever. And it didn't sound like he was super interested in maintaining it anymore because he doesn't use it. So he got several tweets and it sounds like he just renewed it and then put up at GitHub sponsors so that it has a way to cover the costs now, which is good. Because of course, when the domain points to localhost, then obviously you can't have a homepage with any information on it.
Right.
Yeah. He probably needs to have like some special about.lvh.me or something so that there's or a sponsor dot or something, just one exception to have a little homepage for it, but should have its cost covered shortly. He had GitHub sponsors for it. So I think
I Venmoed him
$30 or something.
Yeah. He put up his Venmo and I was like, I'll Venmo you $30. I don't want to add any more sponsors right now. I'm kind of at my limit, but
yeah, sponsored out.
I felt the same about sponsors. I sponsor all these people and now I'm starting to lose track of it. Because like some people I sponsor in different ways. But one thing I've started doing is rotating who I sponsor on GitHub. So that's been cool to see other people be like, hey, thanks for sponsoring me. Like even some of the people that I stopped sponsoring were like, hey, I'm glad you're like, showing other people love in the community. Thanks for sponsoring me. So if you're getting fatigued, start finding a cool Ruby project that needs some money and start rotating.
You need to build a Ruby script to auto rotate every month.
It's all coming full circle. Yeah, no, the LVH thing affected us at work. We ended up just like spinning up our own domain to effectively do the same thing. I'm not upset with anyone who runs a service they pay for. I'm not mad that he let it expire. I never paid him anything. But that morning was like the first time I had sat down to code since I'd been away at the hospital. And I was like, damn it. Like it just like shut down my entire workflow for the morning.
Yeah. Because I think that day I ended up just editing my Etsy hosts file and putting LVH.me in there. And I was like, this will work for now. Yeah, it's funny because the nature of the service is to be transparent. So like he had tweeted asking like who uses LVH.me and got very little responses. And so like my guess is his impression is it's not being used that much, but like I've used it in screencasts for any domain things for a long time. And so I know that a lot of people are probably using it from just my recommendation of it. And I use it constantly and it's pretty funny. Yeah, there's literally no way to track metrics on that. So hopefully the GitHub sponsors and things end up being a better way of tracking it, even though it's tangential or whatever.
I think that tweet he had though was from like 2017 or something. Because when I went to it, I was like, only 10 people have liked this. And then I looked at the date and I was like, I wonder if it's just like really taken off since then.
Could be, yeah.
I didn't know who he was. I just knew LVH.me was a thing. So like,
yeah, I didn't either. I was like, oh, it's down. And somebody posted the tweet about it. And I was like, oh, this is the person who did that. And I was like, they deserve a thank you. But there was no way for me to know who made it. Pretty funny.
I've never tried LVH.me, so I'm going to need to hear why LVH.me over ngrok.
Well, it's not really comparable exactly. ngrok puts your service on the public internet and LVH.me is just a map to localhost. So like if you're testing subdomains and stuff and you're like, I want gorails.localhost, you can't do that. You have to do a domain. And so he set it up so that LVH.me just points to 127001 and that's it. You're good to go. So you can do any subdomain same IP address and you're set, and you can kind of do the same thing with ngrok, but it also like exposes it to the internet and you got to pay for it for certain features to like reserve, whatever subdomain or whatever that you want, and at least with LVHme, you can like go rails.lvhme just goes right back to my computer and I can use any subdomains I need and so on. And you can, of course, accomplish the same stuff with editing your Etsy hosts file, but it's fine to do that. But that's not something that's convenient or as convenient because you can just type it in your browser with no editing configs. Yeah, just a little convenience thing.
I forgot about the subdomain thing. And not to deviate too far, just a tiny little networking question. If I wanted to take a domain, like a local domain on my computer, but have that accessible, like if you're on my Wi-Fi, for instance, you could get access to this, but nowhere else. Where do I go? I don't even know what to Google. I just want a local network, but then I start looking it up. There's like a subreddit where it's all just people posting their like homemade server racks. And I was like, no, I've gone too far.
Yeah, if it's something between only locally on your network, you can use your host name to actually talk between computers. You could do that without setting up any local DNS server or something. If you actually wanted to, you could set up your own DNS server and have little local things. And I think you would just configure your router to use that. And then, when you make a request, it'll go to your gateway. And I'm not sure. It's been a long time since I've said any of that stuff. I did a Cisco router programming course in high school and stuff. And I used to know that stuff a lot more, but it's been a long time since I did any actual network hardware and configuration stuff.
Well, if anyone out there knows the answer to this question or has ideas and wants to talk to me, you can hit me on Twitter at Andrew M. Codes.
This reminded me, once we get our house to a point where we have internet, I'm going to be buying the Ubiquiti Dream Machine Pro and all their PoE cameras and networking equipment and stuff. I'm excited to play with all that because it is quite a nice ecosystem, but there's a lot to it. And it's going to be a fun project, but it's also going to be one where I'm like, yeah, I haven't done any actual physical networking stuff for a long time. Everything's wireless and just internet DNS that I do these days, not local networking that much.
By supporting Ubiquiti, you support the Memphis Grizzlies because the owner of Ubiquiti owns the Memphis Grizzlies. So
wow.
Thank you for your service.
So we know what his profit margins are, and they're big.
100%.
Wow. It seems like there's nobody else that really nails that prosumer small business market that, you could go to Cisco or something giant, but it seems like they do a perfect job of it's super flexible, but yet power users. And, it kind of simplifies that into something that your small business or, if you got, I'm excited to have fiber internet at our house. So I want everything hardwired where I probably will have my computer and whatever. So we'll have the best internet connection. And what I'm most looking forward to is going from, I don't know if I have a 30 meg upload speed here or not. It's something around there. Going from that to a gig upload speed will make uploading Go Rails videos really easy. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I have Xfinity and they give me a gig down, but my upload speed's still 20 or 30 megs. I don't have fiber. So it's I appreciate you still pumping me full of download speeds, but it's kind of worthless the other way.
Yeah. There was a Hacker News article or something talking about that. And it's because the networking hardware and stuff for cable TV was built that way. You're always downloading stuff and occasionally you're buying something and sending data, but it's almost never. So there's this really strong lean towards download instead of upload. So they physically can't give you more upload speed because of the hardware limitations and stuff that they had optimized for just for televisions. I've noticed AT&T around here is really pushing hard for their fiber, but they're not really in all the locations. And we're going to have CenturyLink. Surprisingly, we will have CenturyLink and we're out in the country. A couple miles north of us, there's another neighborhood with these really nice homes. And they're like several $1 million homes and they don't have high-speed internet at all. And the developer there is building a new neighborhood. And he was like, yeah, our old one didn't have high speed. And we were like, okay, I guess it's panic moment. We need to make sure we find a lot with high-speed internet so that when we build, we aren't screwed with dial-up or something. I can't imagine building a house and not having good internet. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, AT&T is the same way here. Like, I'm always getting hit with fiber ads. And I put in my address. And it's like, we don't have fiber. We have DSL for you. And it's 45 meg down. And it's $90 a month. It's like, I think you have misunderstood what I'm looking for.
Yeah, we got a lot of that around here too. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, honeybadger.io. One of the things that's really tricky about error monitoring is that when you get an error, it could have come from anywhere. It could have come from a background job or a user doing some weird thing. They have JavaScript turned off. You never know. And so you might get these stack traces, but you might not know how to debug them. And that is really a pain in the butt. So Honeybadger has a really cool feature called breadcrumbs, and you can integrate their client-side and server-side libraries so that you can track what was going on when an error occurred. So for example, you have a front end, it has a button to go sign up. Your user clicks that and it makes a post request to your API, and your API has a failure response. And then your JavaScript has an error because, well, something went wrong on the back end. Well, what's really cool is that you're able to track all of that with Honeybadger and see the steps that actually happened in the browser and the server side. So you can go replicate those steps and try it yourself and actually replicate those errors and actually solve the bugs. And that is super cool because if you're just trying to look at the stack trace and you don't know what happened that led to that, it's really tough. So Honeybadger can really save you a bunch of time. I think that is one of my favorite features that they offer. And, you know, like we've said before, they have check-in monitoring. So if you've got cron jobs or like regular scheduled background jobs or anything like that, you can have those check in with Honeybadger and make sure that they're running. So you can feel confident that, yes, your cron jobs actually are running. So that's it. I just wanted to give them a shout out. We love Honeybadger, and they've been a long, long time supporter of everyone in the Rails community, and they will continue to be. So check them out. They've got a generous free tier. There's really no reason not to use them. Going back to some JavaScript stuff, I was going to mention that there's some new enhancements to the Request.JS stuff that we talked about last week. One of those is Adrian Pauly got all the shorthand methods merged, which if you're familiar with the jQuery $.post and all of those, you can now do a import, get, post, put, patch, and destroy, which delete was taken, but that matches pretty nicely with Rails, I think. So is technically a delete request, but you're matching it easily on the client side from destroy to the destroy method on your controller. So I thought that was pretty cool. My change to the turbo library got merged as well. So it's going to export the window.turbo variable, which is required for Request.js and the turbo native stuff. So it's nice that instead of having to import it and then set it on the window variable yourself, it'll be taken care of for you. And then like just magically will work with a one-liner import. So that's, I think, going to be a really handy improvement. It removes mistakes, which I think is nice, having good defaults there. That was pretty cool. There's a request interceptor, so you can like intercept requests and decide, you know, if you want to add headers or something to it, which is cool too. Library's coming along nicely, it looks like. And I saw GHH was doing more merges into Turbo, and there's like 98 open issues on Turbo already. So there's a lot to go through, a lot of backlog.
I hesitate to even bring this up, but I'm going to. Do you think the fact that now all of these people who were building and maintaining Turbo, now that they've moved on from Basecamp, is Turbo now more of a risk to use?
No. The speed of it and the philosophy will probably change a bit, but it's still going to be default in Rails 7. And the majority of the foundation's done.
Right.
These are like quality of life improvements, bug fixes, they're not core concepts that are being developed yet, So what's going to happen is it's going to be the polish work from now on for the most part. I don't think there's any risk to it. It's just going to get better. It's going to be slower because you're not going to have the people who created all of the concepts and stuff. And so maybe things will shift a little bit from the same direction. It'll veer off a little bit or whatever. But yeah, in general, I don't think there's anything at all to worry about. It's just a matter of like some new people are going to need to be maintainers. And if DHH disappears for 6 months, you're going to still need somebody else to be maintaining stuff. And so I think that's in the current state of things, like nothing's changed since February or whatever it was. And so like it just needs new people in there who are maintaining it, which is going to be the thing for now to worry about is when does that happen and can we keep merging and all that consistent and progress keep going. So
that's what makes me nervous. I don't know. Not that we were like waiting on it, but like we were all waiting on Stimulus 2 for like a year or so. So like now that the authors of Stimulus and Turbo are gone, it's like, how much longer are we going to be waiting? I mean, I know we need Turbo and Rails for some things, but like if I'm thinking about like, do I build a bunch of interactivity in my app based on Turbo or based on Stimulus Reflex? Right now, I'm going Stimulus Reflex because the support is there, the maintenance is there, the community is there, and it's just not there with Turbo.
Yeah, for now. I mean, it's just going to come down to getting somebody doing a lot of work and getting commit access to it because the Marcel, what's his name, from the Request.JS library, Marcelo, he has commit access to that. So he's moving things quickly on there. So we'll need the equivalent in Turbo at some point. It can't just be DHH or whoever. Until then, yeah, it's going to be a little bit up in the air, but hopefully somebody will step in or we'll get a few people to do that or something. But I think at the end of the day, it needs to be, they're going to be slow on picking people because they want to choose someone who has the right mindset and philosophy for it. You don't want to just like assign to anybody because that's kind of there's just so many ways to drag these open source projects into the weeds. And that's the thing to be afraid of. So, I think they're being a little extra cautious about that, which, slows things down, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole different side of things. You don't have to be special in any sort of way to write code, but I think you do have to be special in certain ways to maintain open source software. All these people coming in asking you like the same question, even though you've documented it and tried to highlight and bold it in your README so many times. The toxicity that can come in if like something breaks and, it's just all this like,
yeah. And
you got to be a certain type of person to do that.
There's an aspect of it that it's really hard because, okay, if I accept your PR, then I'm now responsible for all of the decisions of this going forward. And like, there's an open discussion. Like I inherited commit access to Access Tenant and I'm kind of maintainer of that now. And there's like a long open discussion of like, we want to support multiple tenants. And it sounds good in theory, but like, what does that even mean? Okay, we can query and just say, we'll return any object in these 2 or 3 tenants, whatever you have set. It's not so bad, but what happens when you create a record? Which tenant do we assign it to? We can't do it automatically anymore because there's more than one, but that was a feature of Access Tenant when you have a single one where you create, a new job and it's automatically assigned to the current tenant and everything's good to go. But what do we do now? And how does that affect our validations and all these other things? And it's just not part of the conversation when it's proposed. And I think that's the hard part of all these open source projects, especially something as big as Rails or something as different of a mindset as Turbo, because everybody's like, I want to bring React or Stimulus Reflex, or I want to bring like Vue ideologies to Turbo, but like Turbo is intentionally ignoring all of those other options. Like they don't want to be influenced by that because they're trying to think about it in a different way. And that makes it really hard when you're maintaining to like ignore stuff and choose where your boundaries are and all that. It's not easy. And that's like access tenant is still open discussion on that. People submit PRs for multiple tenants. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds good in theory, but like, I don't know how it's going to affect everybody's app. Is it going to be a breaking change? I don't want to ship that. Or we introduce a new mechanism for it or something. And it becomes very hard when you're like trying to build something that generic. It's definitely tougher than building regular old code where you're like, we got to build this feature. Okay. And we built it and we're done. Like you have to think about building a feature for infinite amount of use cases or whatever, or you set your boundaries and like, we're going to do all these use cases. That is a weird place to be in your meta programming stuff in a way.
Yeah. What gets hard about it is that, and I think this is pretty common knowledge, like, once you create something popular as open source, a lot of people are going to come to you with feature requests. And the challenge turns from like, how do I add more cool features to how do I stop features from getting into this? I didn't hit the balance at all with the RubyConf actions that I created because at first I was like, I want everyone to use this. I kept adding in all these features to the point where it became a major pain. And then I was like, okay, now there's too many features. And what do I do now? But for your problem, acts as tenants is available on RubyGems. So just merge one of those PRs into a branch and then just make that a new gem.
Yeah, right. That's a good idea. Just like...
And make the person who submitted the PR the maintainer and just dip it out.
It's your problem now. There's definitely an aspect of it where I'm like, I think it would be okay if it was a totally separate interface or something where it's like, we know that everything will be plural or an array of items. And then we have some defaults of like, if you don't choose an account and they're multiple, then we're going to pick the first one. And you just have to be careful about it or raise an error and like force them to assign it and stuff. It's interesting. The other really hard part about it is like the reason why Basecamp extracts features and they become part of Rails is like they have their use case and they can pull it out. But then to envision adding features that you aren't going to use is really hard. This is not something I really want to use is the multiple tenants at once. That doesn't seem like something I'll ever use. If I want someone to have multiple tenant access, I want them to like choose and switch between them. Because the whole point is the tenants are separated so they never bleed together. And by adding this feature, it like starts to break down those like core decisions of the library and can introduce mistakes in the code that people are using. And that's very dangerous. And like, I don't really want to encourage that. I would prefer that you chose and switched between them individually, or you have an admin area that says like, all of this is turned off, where you can see every tenant and that's accepted, but it's only in the admin. And those are the hard decisions or whatever. And like, do we add this feature? We can discuss it. And in theory, it sounds good, but to actually go and build it and then maintain it, even if you don't use it, that's hard as a developer or a maintainer of open source.
Yeah, especially if you have ADHD. It's like,
of course.
Why would I do this? I start things all the time and like this just happens to be the thing I decided to finish. No, it's done now.
Yeah.
Close up shop and move on.
Yeah. What else is new? I don't remember seeing the Rails updates.
The CFPs are open for RubyConf and RubyKaigi.
Are those in person this year?
RubyKaigi is not because it's coming up pretty soon, I think. And I think August, maybe? RubyConf is still planning to be... RubyKaigi is September 9th. RubyConf is in November. And they are still planning to have RubyConf in person.
Yeah, I'm planning on going if I can.
I'm planning to go as well.
We can have that hang we've been meaning to have. I'm just going to hang out with you the whole time.
You weren't here last week when I asked Chris my neurotic question. I'll ask you my neurotic question. You ready for this?
Sure.
So like,
buckle up.
It's been like, what, 2 years since we were at wait, is that right? It's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been about 2 years. So we go into RubyConf. We're trying to see people we know. We're like, hey, sup? But then I see you. And I specifically said you in my example to Chris. I'm like, do I hug Jason? Do I just say hey to Jason? Do I have like this awkward like wave?
These
Or
are
do I,
good
like,
questions.
Sorority girl run up and just like both legs and scream.
So is your specific question about people like me and Chris who you're kind of close with, or like acquaintances?
Well, obviously for acquaintances, the friends that I've made on the internet over the
You
pandemic.
just ask. You just ask them.
How does one approach them?
You just ask, but you don't ask me. You just give me a hug.
All right. Well, I think we're all going to need shirts or something that's like, I'm huggable or something like
Yeah. I mean,
6
that's fine with me. I have COVID. I double vax. I'm ready to go. I still worry about it every day, but ready to go.
For some reason, when I moved to Arizona, they don't want to give me the second one because they think I'm supposed to be in North Carolina. And I'm like, I just need to call, and like calling people is like one of the biggest things I hate in this entire planet. So I've been
I
putting it
will
off.
put off
I keep
calling
forgetting.
someone for
until it
months.
goes away.
Yeah.
Till they close. Like until the business closes, till I like the problem solves itself, or until it like advances to a degree I have to like move somewhere else.
Yeah, I'd rather change my phone number than like.
I've seriously thought about it before.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Let's just hug. Let's just go for it.
All right.
Pug.
Well, I'll just put that on my notes. So I've got my Jason greeting down.
To be fair, so when I saw Chris a couple weeks ago, my first question was, "Are we hugging?" And then
Yeah.
that's what we did, and then we got kicked out of the
Yep.
restaurant we were at noon because we had a 2-month-old with us.
Yeah. The restaurant supposedly got really rowdy afternoon, literally at noon.
That
Great.
was our first experience eating out together. We got kicked out somewhere. So
Yeah. That's the back to regular life, huh? That's
Y'all
what we
don't
were
have
missing
good,
out for a year.
You didn't get kicked out, but the workplace wasn't open when y'all went to a casino or whatever to work on a
it's
gym.
true.
And
Yeah.
then didn't you like go somewhere else that wasn't having it either? Maybe not.
Yeah, the hotel only let us in on Friday. Saturday, they're like, "F you."
I'm starting to think maybe y'all are just really rowdy. Like
Could be.
That's
we're up
it.
to
Could be.
3 places now that have kicked y'all out.
I like to imagine that's the case, but Chris and I just kind of sit there.
Yeah.
With our laptops. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're like as quiet as can be for the most part. Like,
like it was mostly like Brooke and Shannon, like keeping conversation going. Me and Chris just like nodding and laughing. Like, so,
Yeah. Be like, nudge Chris, be like, hey, so you see that Request.JS PR I made? Sweet, right?
No, we had my friend was with me and he was loud and talked for all of us.
yeah, my favorite thing was him getting white milk at the baseball game, just drinking that.
All right. Well, now I have a whole list of questions. Honestly, where would you like to start?
Let's go.
Okay, number one, how much was the milk that was bought at said baseball game?
We had unlimited food and drinks, so it was
Oh God,
included.
unlimited milk. Okay, now it's like an It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode.
Just went ham on milk, trying to see who could throw up first.
Never mind. I don't want it. I'm just making me sick just thinking about it.
He had a glass of milk, but
Well, did he chase it down with beer? Because that's what I'm really envisioning here, and that's why it gets gross. Ew.
we also went to this really cool ice cream place. One of the coolest places I've ever eaten. And this dude's like, "I'm going to get a PB&J." And that's when I was like, all right.
Andy had milk too, didn't he?
Yeah, of course he had milk. I mean, it was a meal, right?
Yeah.
He also asked to come on this show, which would be the worst thing for all of us, including everyone listening.
Well, good to know, I guess.
Those are the fun things you can expect when you hang out with us at the next conference.
Yeah.
We're gonna
You know what?
we're gonna go somewhere that has milk and just hang out.
Maybe I am just happier at home, you know?
Safer at home.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will miss y'all. Thanks
Yeah.
for letting
Yeah.
me
We'll
hang out
miss
today.
you, but good luck with everything. Hope it goes well and get
Yeah.
some sleep ahead of time.
I'll be back at some point. I don't know when.
Well, when you start teaching all your kids Ruby on Rails, you can have them on the podcast and they can teach us how to do things.
Bedtime stories with Jason. Just reading the Rails source code every
It
night.
was
It's
the
a
night
different
before
class.
Christmas and DHH started. Writing a commit.
That's how we ended up with callbacks.
Yeah, I know. I think it should just be 2 or 3 weeks, but we'll see.
All right.
Well, yeah, no one's believing that, but
Well,
Best of
there will
luck.
be a lot of new JavaScript frameworks by then, so
True
we'll get
that.
you up to
Right one.
speed.
Andrew, if you don't have a JavaScript framework by the time I get back, I will be more upset than anything I've ever been upset about.
okay, but what does it have to do? All right.
It doesn't
Surprise
have
me.
to be useful.
It doesn't have to be useful.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
like all of our code.
Well, then, oh, okay. Well, then I got this.
You just have to be willing to make it open source so I can add features that
Sure.
you don't want to maintain. That I don't know
Obviously.
what they're supposed to do, you know.
Obviously. And I'm gonna add way too many like GitHub actions to the point that they're not helpful. You know, like every time like someone presses a button in the repository, like 7 actions start kicking off, like moving things around. Oh man, what a mistake.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
All right,
get to
see ya.
work. You got 2 weeks.
I'll write it in Haml for you.
Hey, coming around. I'm having my renaissance. So,
Hey. All right. Well, Jason, good luck. We're rooting for you.
appreciate it. We'll see you.
See ya.
Bye.